Echo hums a melody, soft as morning dew. Her hands weave magic, making old feel new. In her eyes, 1,000 stories bloom. She's got a kaleidoscope spinning bright, colors of love spilling into the night. Echo, echo, your heart's a rainbow glow. Every shade of joy, every seed you sow. Your kaleidoscope of happiness, it shines, it shows. Echo, echo, your love's the brightest flow. She braids her granddaughter's hair, whispers of the sea, tales of stars and moons where dreams roam free. Her laugh's a symphony, a gentle dancing spree.
Hello, everybody. Help me welcome Star. We have been
Hello.
trying to get together for a little while, so we finally found a day where we could do it. So thank you so
Right.
much for joining me today, Star. And welcome in Vince and BJ and Body Illusion and everybody else. Thank you all so much. We were
Well,
just
thanks
having
for
a
Echo for the invite.
an in-depth conversation about my daughter and granddaughter, so you know how I am with that. I can't never shut up about it. So hello, Izzy Pop, welcome. um,
Hey, Izzy.
it is so hard though to deal with any kind of relationship. Hello, Diamond Painting Cutie and Anfield Road Layout, welcome, welcome. And Sherry, welcome, welcome. um, I find relationships very difficult, and it's almost like you know how you want to be treated and you think you're treating other people that way, but sometimes they don't feel that or they don't get that. Hello, Stephanie, welcome. And so we were just talking about sometimes I struggle with the relationship with my daughter.
Yes.
When I got divorced, that was like my biggest fear, that I was going to lose my daughter too. And she was 17 and had a year of high school left to go. And at first, everything was fine. And then she got her very first serious boyfriend. And he was a little bit older and already out of high school, already had a job, already had his own home. And I was scared to death that my daughter would say, I'm quitting school and I'm going to live with him. And I was like, no, I can't let that happen. So I was like overly accepting of the relationship, and oh, but I want him to be here with us, and so
Right.
their entire relationship, and then when she had my granddaughter, I've always felt like I'm on eggshells. Like I have to say and do the right thing. If I do the wrong thing, I'm going to risk losing her. And I know that's not even realistic because I'm her mama
Right.
and she loves me. Hello,
That's right.
Regina. But I didn't know what we were going to talk about, Star, but I know that your faith in Jesus is so strong that you probably have advice you can give me, something to help me with my internal struggle of motherhood.
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, being a mom, I have three children. I have two grandchildren, and I actually have two other grandchildren that were adopted out. So I understand about the struggles of motherhood. Are you
It,
still there? Okay,
I'm
there
here.
you
Yeah.
are.
It
So
you know
I understand, and I understand we always want to make the best decisions for our children. And we always have to remember that God is number one. If we put God first in our life, then everything else will work out. You know, even above our children, we are to love Him more than even our own children. And that was very hard for me to understand for when I had my kids, and while they were number one, I had to put God first, and that we had our struggles, especially when they became teenagers. And that time my daughter decided that she got pregnant and didn't want the kids. I said I would take the kids. She did not want any part at all to do with those children, and I am adopted. So, and I said I didn't want these children to be adopted. It was a struggle. It was a major, major struggle. And we didn't even talk for quite a while because I was angry at her, and I had to give it to the Lord. And we probably wouldn't be talking today if I didn't do that, because the hurt was so great. The hurt was just unbearable. I felt that she was hurting me into what she was doing. This was getting back at mom. And I had to realize she had to go through her process of, she didn't want the children, she didn't want anything to do with the children, and she gave the children to somebody else because she couldn't care. And maybe she didn't want the reminder, or didn't want the realization maybe of what she did. And I mean, we were all raised in a Christian home. She knew the rights and she knew the wrongs, and she knew what you shouldn't do. And we all go through life struggles. And especially a mother and a daughter, you know, there's time we have to be a parent. And it doesn't matter what age. And today I want to say a special happy birthday to my mom, who is in heaven. But it would have been her earthly birthday today. So I learned so much from my mom, and I did my best to pass it on to my children. So I think the number one is giving them over. They are not. We are to raise our children, but they are not our children. They belong to God. And so He gives us the wisdom to speak to our children and for them to learn. But, we have to do it with His guidance, if that makes any sense.
I haven't never looked at it that way. That you're right. They're not. They are ours, but He's the reason that we even had them.
Right.
And just as we can't control everything that happens in our own lives, they can't either. And they need God to help them just as much as we need Him, to help
Right.
us with our struggles in our lives.
Yes.
But I never really thought of it like that. I always felt like, I was the kind of the last line of defense, like I had to do
Right.
everything to make sure she was okay, and that,
Yeah.
things worked
And
out
and
for
we
her.
not. I mean, it's they're God's first. He gave them to us, and He gives us the wisdom, and He gives us the strength, He gives us the knowledge to raise them. And they still human. They're still going to make their own decisions, good or bad. And it doesn't matter, like I said, the age. I mean, I was even still disciplined in the when I was in my 30s from
Yeah.
my mom, saying, well, I really think you shouldn't be doing that, and stuff. And so, I mean, we're always going to be, the mom. But we always have to remember they're not our children. They belong to God first. He has given us the gift of them, but they are God's children. We're all God's children,
Right.
but
Right.
He has given them to us. So yeah, I always have to remember that. Even them, I mean, they're in their 30s now, right? And I still always have to remember He died. And God's going to deal with them, how, with everything that they do, like He deals with us. I mean, He deals with us.
Yes, He
Sometimes
does.
we don't like it. But it's no different than what he's going to do with your daughter. No different what he's going to do with your granddaughter. No, we are to love. I mean, I'm all about the love, and I think people know that. The love of Jesus. Jesus taught, and I mean, you can read in the New Testament all the different ways that he taught, and we are to be the same. We are to teach. We're like teachers. We're all teachers.
Yes. And I think my biggest, dr- not drawback, but my biggest hurdle with the whole mother daughter relationship is the fact that I didn't have a good mother daughter relationship with my mom. And so I think I overcompensate and try to make sure that I have this wonderful relationship with my daughter, even if it means maybe doing things that don't make me 100% happy. Like I want to make sure that I don't give her any reason to not have a good relationship with me. So
Right.
that's definitely a personal struggle that I
Yes.
have to.
And you just
Oh,
have to give it over to God. Just
yeah,
let God take control.
yeah,
And I mean, there's some things that we don't want to let go of, right?
true, true.
And it's so hard. How am I supposed to give that over? Because as humans, we all want to have that control. We all, I mean, it's in us, right? And so we want to hold on to that control. But once you learn to just give it, yeah, and I always say, just give it over to God. He'll deal with it. He'll guide us. He'll give us the wisdom, and everything's going to work out to His plan. Might not be to our plan how we want to see how things work out. Obviously, according to what happened with my daughter and the kids there, that was
Right,
not my plan. But
right.
obviously, that was God's plan. In the big scheme of things, it was God's plan. So, and I'm hoping that one day, she will have a connection to those children. Being adopted, I never had a connection to my adopted parents. And so I really hope that she gets a connection to her children. And I
Yeah,
can just pray that she will. If it's God's, and I always say if it's God's will, because it might not be His will.
right. And that's the
Obviously,
hard thing.
obviously it wasn't right, and obviously it wasn't His will for me to have a connection to my adopted parents. So, because it just never worked out. I mean, I got a letter, I got all the background information. There was a time in my life that, oh, yes, I'm going to find out who they are. There's so many siblings out there. Now, thankfully, I was adopted with my twin brother. So, I thank the Lord for that. But there's a lot of us out there. My mother was a very busy lady.
Oh,
And unfortunately, we all have different fathers. But, um, I do have one brother that is, I think he's a year older than us, and he is with the same father. So I do have one total blood brother out there, and the rest are all partial because
but
she,
you haven't met
she.
any of them?
I have not met any of them. I have, dabbled here and there, but I haven't felt that this is supposed to go any further.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, there's always been a blockage, and so I just have to leave God in control, and if it's His will, then it will work out, and if it's not, then obviously it's not going to work out. I would have loved to have met my real mom. I would have loved to have met my real dad. Just to see them, curiosity, right?
Yeah, right.
But then I think, oh yeah, curiosity, what killed
Kill
the
the cat.
cat?
Exactly. This brings up a really good thought, and that I've not had before either. When you want to live your life by the will of God, I
Mhm.
think it might be even easier on me if I didn't have my own kind of expectations or my own, like what I want to have happen. And then
Right.
when that doesn't happen, then I'm kind of like, but God, that's what I wanted, you know? And I think it might
Right?
be better, like if you're going to say, I'm going to live by God's will, then don't try to figure things out and make a plan of how things are going to go. Then you can't be disappointed if that
Right.
doesn't happen. It's almost like
Right.
without the expectation, you don't have to worry about the disappointment. And then you can just be surprised and happy with whatever is God's will for you. You
Right.
know,
Whatever
whatever
the
doesn't
outcome
work
is.
out.
Whatever the outcome is. I mean,
Is,
it says in the Bible we're to rejoice and rejoice no matter what situation we're going through in life. We need to keep praising his name, and we need to keep rejoicing even through the sad times. I'm always reminded of Paul and Silas sitting in that jail cell. They could have been grumbling. They could have been cursing God. Like, here we are witnessing for you, Lord, and look, we ended up in prison. But they didn't. And Paul said, rejoice. And again, I say rejoice. I mean, he continued rejoicing, and the Lord heard. And what did he do? He broke them out of there, is what he
yeah,
did. And that's what he does in our lives. We continue putting him first, following his will, obeying what he's telling us to do, and rejoicing in his name. We have that breakthrough. We have that freedom, basically, of a joy that is so overflowing that you walk in and say, "Thank you, Jesus." Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. But of
Hello.
course,
I want to
oh,
say hello to these folks that just popped in, Elisa and Ashley and the Crafty Home. Welcome everybody in. If I missed anybody else, I do apologize. Y'all know how I am when I have a guest. My mind goes to my guest and I forget all about watching that chat. So I do apologize. And I hope that we have said hello to everyone now. Um, yeah,
hello,
I
everyone.
think we don't, they say put your trust in God, but sometimes
Yes.
we don't have the realization that God is as big as he is. Like he can do anything. So even when you
Yes.
feel like it's impossible, that,
Yes.
there's no way this is going to have a positive outcome, but God can, he will if that's his will. And I think that's a hard thing to learn, that it's okay not to have any kind of understanding of what could possibly turn out
Right.
for the good. And
Right.
it's okay. But I guess I'm always the kind of person that's kind of like, well, let me try to figure this out. Like, if I could do anything, how would I work this out? And it's never how it gets worked out.
Right. Yes. And in order to work things out, we need to do that in prayer. I mean, this has taken me probably 40 years of my life to figure this out. So, I mean, I rebelled. I was not following at all for many years of my life. And then I got sick, and then the things happened with my daughter. My mom was going downhill. Everything was just piling up until one day I woke up. I was raised in a Christian home. I went to church faithfully every Sunday because I had to. It was something that I had to do. And it wasn't just the morning, it was at night. And then there was Wednesday prayer meeting. And then, there was different things. I sang in the church choir. Everything. But with circumstances in life, it's like, I don't need. What do you mean I need God? I don't need God. I can do this on my own. And I did for, many years. I didn't put him first. Now, I knew he was there, but I did not put him first in my life, and my life tumbled. I mean, it got to the point that it tumbled. I got autoimmune disorder. Um, I was not following, and then I got other sicknesses on top of that, and it was just, I just didn't think that I could just go on. The doctor had me in a wheelchair. He said, "Oh yeah, a couple of years you're going to be in a wheelchair. You're not going to be able to walk." And I was so drugged up on medications, so drugged out. And not only on medication, but I started, drinking alcohol, and I started, I was doing the medicinal on top of the
Medicinal?
other
Yeah.
medicinal. I was flying higher than a kite. I was, there was times who are you? I have no idea who I am, but I'm here. Not to say that I didn't have, still, I was always happy. I have a gift that God gave me, and that is how, I guess that's the joy that is in my heart. And that is definitely a gift. And that gift never did leave me. If someone else was out there and not, oh yeah, I could make you laugh and I could make you happy. But was I contented in my life? Well, absolutely not. You know,
Right.
so I gave everything up, everything, just threw everything up. And then my mom passed away, and I mean, things were rocky even in my marriage. I mean, it was all over the place. I mean, I was like, I can't go on like this. And I had to realize that the reason why things are not working out is because I have not put God first in my life. Once I put God first in my life, things started, really um, working out. You know, I my bills were so far behind, like everything, because I wasn't working, and I guess I was on disability, but still, that was only like 60% of what I was earning.
Yeah.
I had met a wonderful man, and we got married, and as soon as we got married, I got sick. Poor guy. But he stuck with me because he was part of God's plan in my life. God knew exactly what I was going to need while I was going through this time of realization of how I needed to change my life. So I mean, he has stuck with me right through everything, which is just amazes me because I mean. First time I was so high, I didn't even know who he was. He'd be walking in and be like, "Who are you?"
Oh my goodness.
But yet he stuck with me because it was in God's plan, you know. And
Sister
I'm just so
Stephanie
blessed.
says that's why it's important to get on the same page as our spirit. Listen to our spirit by praying and staying in the Word.
That's
Exactly.
right. Exactly. And that's exactly what I had to do. I had, like I said, and you have to give things up. It might be friendships, it might be things that you enjoy doing. But if they're in the way of of what you should be doing, you need to give those things up. And I didn't want to give those things up.
Right.
It was like they were so much a part of my life that I didn't want to. I struggled to have to give all those things up. But then the Lord had other plans. We sold the house, we got an RV, I was moving around a lot more. I was like, doctors, you can't tell me I'm not going to be walking. Only God can tell me that. Who do you
Right.
think you are? Right?
Right.
And I don't need your medications. I don't need your medications. So I stopped everything. That's what I mean. I stopped everything cold turkey. And people are like, you are going to have effects. Well, I didn't have any effects from stopping cold turkey. That's what I needed to do.
Right.
And that's what God wanted me to do. I should say that more. That's what God wanted me to do was change everything. So yeah, so we got, we decided to, we found out that the dry, warmer weather would be better for me for my autoimmune. And so we said, okay, well, let's go try it out for 6 months. Let's go see what this will do. And we were out here, and it was like, oh yes, Lord, this is where I need to be, right? And I prayed about it, and yes, this is exactly. So of course, we lived in a trailer for 2.5 years, and now He's blessed us with a home here, or I should say with a house, because I always say a home is a home. There's a difference, right? The
Right.
home is where the heart is. A house is just a building,
Right.
but He blessed us with a house, and of course, He blesses me every day with a beautiful home that I have here. So yeah, it's but it was awakening, and everybody goes through life with their own struggles and everything. And I have to say, Echo, I'm very thankful that I have met beautiful Tia, because her devotionals and the sisterhood and what today's message was on her devotion goes hand in hand. We have to have the sisterhood, the friendships that we build in a positive Christian way. I'm not saying you cannot be friends with ones that don't believe in the Lord, but we have to be so very careful and have that discernment about
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
because those things can suck us in without
I was
us
just
even
going to
knowing.
say that the devil can use the people closest to you and make you think that you need them more than you
Right,
need God.
right.
And this keeps coming in my mind, and I don't know if it's a scripture somewhere that I just don't know what it is, or if it's just a saying I've heard. But kind of what you were talking about is like you have to die to yourself to find yourself. Like
Yes,
you can't be doing what your flesh wants if you really want to get to know your soul. Your actual
right.
being can't be controlled by your flesh. And I don't know if
You
I've
can
just
only
heard
serve
that.
one God.
Yeah.
That's what it says. You can only serve one God. So once you start serving that one God, then everything else will start falling into place in your life. And so I think that's what you're talking about a little bit, because we cannot serve flesh, we cannot serve our friends, we can't serve anybody without serving God first and putting Him first.
Right. And I think a lot of the time you think it's more about, oh, but I have to give all this up, instead of looking at what you're going to gain if you do give your life to Christ, and if you are living for His will.
Right.
You will, things are unimaginable to you what you will gain, but it's so easy to look at the fleshly things that you're going to have to stop,
Right,
and
and I did not want to stop what I was doing. I was I'm a type of person that I have an addictive behaviors. That's if that even sounds right, but I can get addicted to something very fast. You
Mhm.
know, I give up one thing and I go to another and I get addicted on that, and I go to another and I get addicted on that, and it's an addictive behavior. So my mother, my real mother, also had addictions in her life. My father also had addictions in his life. So sometimes that I think is passed down from generation to generation. And how do you break those addictions? And I have to say, I mean, I have no problem saying that I'm addicted to diamond painting, because I am. Right? I'm not only addicted to diamond painting, I'm also addicted to collecting them.
I was
I
just
see
going
a
to say,
beautiful picture and it's like, oh yes, I gotta have it. I gotta have it.
since I started being a creative being, I now
Yeah.
realize there's two hobbies. One is the actual doing of the hobby, and the other
Yeah.
is buying things for the hobby. So
Yes.
it's kind of like sometimes that gets out of balance. Like you're buying all this stuff and you'll
Hmm.
never. My daughter said the other day, you have got so many things to do. You'll never do everything that you want to do. And it's true that it's
Yeah.
easy to plan things to do with your time, but then actually allocating that time and not letting it become addictive. I'm glad that you brought
Right.
that up about addictive behaviors, because that's one thing
Yes.
that I learned through my going through my bariatric surgery. It's one thing they caution you that if you're addicted to food and you give that up and you're no longer addicted to food, you can then become addicted to, you know, drugs or
Something else.
alcohol or
Right.
gambling or, whatever,
Right.
because you still are using something to cope
Yes.
with whatever issue it is that gave you the reason that you needed to cope with the food. You still have,
Right.
if you still have that issue, you're still going to need something. Excuse me. Hello, Betty. Welcome. You're still going to need something to be able to deal with that. And it's the same thing because I used to be a smoker. And it was the
Yeah.
same thing when I quit smoking. I realized one day that it wasn't even the cigarettes that actually calmed me down and made me feel like I was having a break. It was just the
Right.
fact that I was having a break. Because, like at work,
Right.
I would be so hyped up working, then I would go
Yeah.
on my break or my lunch break, and yes, I
Right.
would smoke. But after I quit the smoking, I still felt refreshed after I had that break. So it was
Right.
like I needed a break. I didn't need a cigarette, if that
Right.
makes
And
any sense.
I hear a lot of people, oh, I need my nicotine. I mean, my
Yeah.
brother
Well,
smokes, right? And he doesn't, I mean, he smokes and he also uses the other stuff, but it's like, oh, I need it. And I'm like, do you really need it? Yeah, and I mean, he gets the sweats and he gets, you know, he can't handle not having a cigarette. And
yes,
he
and
gets his
the
anxiety goes up. And I
the
said, but that's the
chemicals,
devil playing in your head.
but
That's the
the
devil
chemicals,
playing in your head.
they do affect your
They do.
body. And
Yes, it
so
absolutely
that is
does.
part of it. And that's where going through the detox and getting off of those chemicals is what will
Yes.
help it.
Yes.
And I had to
Yes.
start saying, okay, I'm not going to smoke in my house. I'm not going to smoke in my car.
Right.
And driving down the road and having to pull over and get out of the car to smoke a cigarette. You don't want that cigarette, especially in the winter months. It's like, you know
Right.
what? I think I can make it without it because it's too freaking cold to stand out there, and smoke. But you have
Right.
to start limiting how and
Yes.
where you're doing the behavior to where eventually you can get away from it enough that your body can build up to where you don't need those chemicals.
Well,
And
what
then
do
you
they?
still,
What are
have
the
to get
therapeutics?
over the idea of
Hmm.
doing whatever that habit, was. So it's a
Right. I think they
process.
say it takes 21 days. It takes 21
Start a
days
new
to break
habit.
a habit. No, to
Yeah.
break a habit.
Yeah.
It takes 1 day to start a habit.
Yeah. You're right. Exactly. And even after
So,
21 days, for a
yeah.
long time, I would say I'm only
Yeah.
one cigarette away from being a smoker. Because
Yes.
if you ever pick it back up and you ever start it again, you'll fall right back into that habit of doing it.
Well,
And I
yeah. Well,
actually
just
did
like
that.
that song says, right? Hard habits are hard to break. I can't even remember who sang it. Some pop group, but hard habits are hard to break,
That's right. That's right.
or
And
something like that. Or bad habits are hard to break. I'm not sure, but
I had
what it
I
was.
had
But
always said, if the Lord ever let me have a baby, I would quit smoking. And just so happened I got pneumonia and was in the hospital. And the
oh,
doctor said, I hope you know you've had your last cigarette. And I was like, yeah, I'm having so many breathing issues. I think it's time to look at that. And so
right.
I quit smoking and I was really amazed that after a little while, it got easier and easier not to do it. And then I found out I was expecting. And so that was like the major motivation to like, okay, you're not going to do it. But my
Right.
husband still smoked. So when my
Yes.
daughter was about a year and a half old, um, we got into a big argument and I thought that I was pregnant again. And I was struggling having the
Mhm.
baby and working and, doing all the things. And it was just like, oh no, I can't. Even though I wanted more kids, I was like, I can't handle a baby right now. And so I was upset and I was mad, and his cigarettes were laying on the kitchen counter. And I just, without even thinking about it, picked one up, lit it up, was standing there smoking. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? What am I doing? And he's like, you're smoking. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And he's like, yes, you are. You just automatically felt
Yes.
stressed and they were there and you didn't even realize, you were doing it. And so I started smoking again. And I
Yeah.
smoked until my daughter was 3 years old, so about a year and a half. she went to preschool, they told her that cigarettes and alcohol were drugs and they would kill you. She came home and said,
Oh,
Mommy, I don't want you to die. You have to, not smoke. And I was like, oh my God, if my child is old enough to realize that this is, could kill me, I can't do this anymore. And that's when I quit for the last and final time. But I think in that
right.
year and a half, I had tried to quit probably 10 times. And I just didn't have the motivation to stick with it. I would
Yeah.
always, fall back into it. But once it was my daughter on the line, it was like, oh, God, help me. I have to do it this time. And I was able to do
Right.
it. But it's only been in the last, she just turned 28. So
Okay.
she would have been 25. So the past 25 years that I have not been a smoker, it's probably only been the last 10 years that I didn't think one cigarette would do it. Like now
Yeah.
I know how bad it is, and I don't want to do it, and I don't think I ever will pick it back up. But it is a struggle. It's very hard.
And it's funny that even a smell, you know, you go someplace and someone is smoking and oh, that smells so good, and then you have to think, wait, what did I just say?
And what
You
was
know?
hard for me too is that my husband was still smoking.
Yes.
And so I could still smell it on him. He would, go out in the garage or whatever. He was kind enough not to do it right in my face, but I
Right.
still, it was still around me. Hello, Jackie, welcome. Um,
Okay.
and so, that was
Yeah.
hard. And it wasn't until he finally quit
Hmm.
that he understood how that had not been the best thing to be doing around me when I was trying to be,
Right.
you know.
Because you, like I said, even the smell,
Yeah.
anything,
And
when you're trying to quit something, you have, oh, if I could only have that cigarette, right? Life would be so much better. My anxiety wouldn't be off the roof, right? And then you walk by and you're like, oh, that smell, it smells so good. Then you really have to step back and say, whoa, 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 whoa. I need to get out of this situation
right,
and
right.
take myself away, or I'm going to have that cigarette, or I'm going
Yeah.
to have that drug, or I'm going to have that alcohol, whatever it is that is, I call them the demons in our life,
Yeah.
you know, because they obviously do not come from the Lord.
No.
So I say they are the demons of life. I need to step away and get out of here.
Yeah.
I
Hello,
need to get
Nancy. Welcome. Yeah, and that's the thing when
yeah,
you can start to realize how things are affecting you
yes,
and you can say, oh no, this is, I'm only one step away. I got to go. I got to get away from this. But sometimes it's
right,
hard to have that conviction and be able to say, okay, I don't need to be here. I don't need to do this. I'm going to walk away.
right,
Sometimes that's really hard. And, you know, I thought I was ready after my divorce and having time on my own. I really felt like, okay, I'm ready to try again, to
right,
to look for a relationship. So my husband, even though he was raised in the church, I'm going to call him a cultural Christian,
right.
like he has said this morning. It's a very
Yes.
good way of putting it. Um,
Very good way.
his heart wasn't in it, and
Yeah.
so that was one issue that we always had. I was a strong believer. I believed in God, and he kind of like, okay, sure, if you want to, you believe. But he was
Right.
never where I felt like he was in it with me. And
Yeah.
so when I did decide to start dating again, that was one of like my top priorities. Like, God, send me a man of God, send me somebody
Right.
who will understand it and everything. But when you pray for something, the devil hears it too. The devil
Yeah.
can say, oh, this is what you want. Let me find this person and send them to you. And then
Yeah.
because you think it's coming from God, you just accept it, into your life and are like, oh, this is heaven sent. This is what I need. And let me tell y'all, somebody can pretend to be somebody they're not for only so long. And
That's right.
eventually their true self will come out. And I think
Yes.
also if you do pray about things, God will show you the truth of
Yes.
people. And sometimes you're not willing to look at that and believe it. And then sometimes you are. But
Yes.
when I was in that situation and realized that my relationship was not of God and it was not
Mm-hmm.
healthy for me and that I needed to get out of it, um,
Yeah.
it was very difficult to think, but this is what you thought you wanted. You wanted a companion. You wanted somebody to share your life with. And yet you have that, but you don't want what you have now because that wasn't really what I wanted. I really wanted to have a relationship with myself and to increase my relationship with God and be able to enjoy my life to the fullest. Just having a
Right.
partner doesn't mean that's going to happen. That partner can bring you grief and bring your life down just as much as they can help uplift your life. They can turn it the other way. And so
Right.
I had to, put an end to that relationship. And it was very difficult for me not to feel like, well, you sure failed that time, like you just went into it wholeheartedly and full speed ahead and look what happened to you. But I'm
Well,
blessed that,
that's where God gives us the discernment, but we don't sometimes see it because we
yeah,
don't want to see it.
right.
You
And
know.
now I know all those feelings that I had in the beginning of that relationship. That
Yeah.
was God, tapping me on the shoulder, like, think about that. Don't just take it at what it says, think about it. And I didn't listen, and then it
Right.
was like one day it was like I felt like I got hit in the head with a brick, it was like, oh my goodness, I see it now. I see what you're trying to tell me. And
Right.
all of my family and my close friends, they all knew this was not a good relationship for me. But because they loved me and they wanted me to be happy,
Right.
they didn't tell me their true feelings about the situation. And so when I finally got up the courage to start talking to people close to me and saying, I've made a mistake and this is not good and I need to get out of this relationship,
Right.
they were all like, thank you for seeing the light. We've been, praying that you would see. And, it's like, but why didn't you tell
Yeah.
me? But it's because they didn't want to. They thought that would be, hurting me to tell me. And that if I really was happy in the relationship, they did want to be happy, for me.
Right. Right.
But as soon as I said, no, this is not going to work. This is not for me. My daughter
Right.
was like, Mama, you're not strong enough to walk away. And I
Hmm.
said, no, the old me is not strong enough to walk away.
Right.
But I am praying that God is going to figure out a way and let me know when and what to do. And then I'm going to be able to do it. And
Yes.
that's exactly what happened. It was almost as if he just said, here it is, all wrapped up in a neat little package. Here you go. Here's what you need to do, when you need to do it, how you need to do it,
Right.
everything, and I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
Lord, this may not work. This may be even a bigger mistake trying to end this thing, but I'm going to, do it. And afterwards, even for weeks and weeks afterwards, my
Hmm.
daughter was like, I just can't believe I didn't think you were strong enough. I really thought you were not going to be able to go through with it. And I'm like, but it wasn't me. It was God saying,
Right.
I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you the strength to be able to get through this time. So now
Mhm.
it's like, I don't, and it's not that I don't ever want to date again. That's not it at all. It's just that I don't need to feel like I need to be dating or I
Right.
need to have a relationship. I feel like for the first time in my 62 years, I have a relationship with myself and
Right.
a relationship with God. And because of
Yes.
that, I don't need anything else like that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I do feel like I'm a little baby Christian because I was a cultural Christian too in my childhood. I did
Yeah.
because that's what my parents told me to do. I wanted
Right.
things I believed. but I know I believe now. So I think it is a difference when maybe you learn things as a child. I know some people, accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior at a very young age and are able to live their life that way. And then I think there's other of us that, it's a little bit harder, and maybe we don't trust that that's, the best thing to do, and we don't realize it. And
Right.
we come to it later, in our life. But like, even though my faith is really strong now, I've always had a strong faith. And when things would happen, I would always say, oh, that was God. That wasn't me. That was God.
Right. Right.
There's no way humanly possible I could have done that on my own without, it being God.
Right.
But then too, even like with waiting to have my daughter, I kept thinking, I don't want to play God. I don't want to do anything, extraordinarily to try to make this happen. I believed that if I was meant to have a child, God would let me have a child, that I didn't need to
Right.
do what the medical professionals were telling me, even though he kept having them tell me that. It was like
Right.
he kept
Yeah.
trying to help me, and I kept saying, oh no, but I'm waiting for God, you know?
Right.
And it wasn't until I decided that, look, okay, God, I've spent all this time praying and wanting something that obviously
Right.
is not in your will for me, but I don't
Yes.
know how to live my life without it. And so I need you to take it away. Just, take the desire of me wanting to be a mother and take it away and give me something else to desire,
Right.
you know. And my whole life I've been a mother, whether I had a child or not. I've always
Right.
had that nurturing kind of spirit, and I've always nurtured animals and my plants and other people. My daughter says I collect people that need to be nurtured, It's like I definitely attract those kind of people, but I
Right.
definitely, will nurture them if they let me. And
Yes.
it wasn't
But
until I,
that is your gift.
yeah, I
That's
think
why I say
so.
God gives us all of us, each and every one of us, a gift. Now we just have to find what that gift is,
Right.
and really echo. I feel that is your gift. That is your gift from God.
Yep.
That is what He has given you. So it's a blessing,
Yeah.
you
And as
know.
soon as I prayed that prayer and said, okay, that's it, no
Yeah.
more. I'm not going to put myself through this anymore. If it
Right.
happens, it happens. And I was 17 weeks pregnant when I actually found out I was pregnant, because I was not going to take a test. I did not believe it was possible that I would get pregnant. And I
Right.
just really wasn't, I wasn't going to do that anymore, because I had always, when I would take a test, then I would, find out right after that I wasn't, and I'd be depressed again. So I was like,
Right.
yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to, and I kind of, jokingly thought to myself, I'll be that woman that's in the emergency room with back pain that gives birth, because I'm not going to know, ahead of time that I'm pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah.
But God wanted me to enjoy the pregnancy. And so he
Right.
gave me horrible morning sickness to where I thought I was going to die. And that's when I finally said, I've got to go to the doctor, because there is
Right.
something very, very wrong with me. And the nurse was like, well, is there a possibility you could be pregnant? And I'm like, well, there's always a possibility, because I'm not preventing it. However,
Right.
I've tried for 10 years and I've not gotten pregnant. So, I doubt that's what it is. And the doctor was like, well, we're going to do a test just to be sure to rule that out. And then while the nurse is waiting for the test to finish, she says, well, how would it be if you were pregnant? And I said, if I was pregnant, I would be ecstatically happy. But if I'm
Yes.
not, I'm not going to let it make me depressed again.
Right.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, you're going to be ecstatically happy because you are definitely pregnant. And I was like, how is that even possible? And they were like, you need to call your husband. You need to get him to come up here with a videotape, because we're going to do an ultrasound and you are going to see your baby. And I was like,
Oh,
I'm expecting it to be a blob on the screen, thinking, yeah, we don't need to video that. No
Right.
big deal, right? I call my husband and I'm like, you're not going to believe this. And he goes, I know you're pregnant. And I'm like, how do you know? And he's like, because this time it was different. I just know. I just knew you were, but I knew you weren't going to
Right.
find out. And I said, well, they say I'm pregnant and you need to come up here because they want to do an ultrasound and you need to bring a tape so we can video. And he's like, okay, good. He comes up there and both of us are expecting this blob on the screen.
Yeah.
And here she's 17 weeks, so she's fully formed, got little fingers and toes and
Yes.
everything. And we're like, oh my God, it's a real baby in there. It's not a blob. It is a baby.
There is a baby in there.
We just couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. And the fact that after I had her, I
Yeah.
was diagnosed with the polycystic ovarian syndrome, and they said,
Right.
this explains your infertility. And if you had just had some tests done, we could have maybe found this out sooner. And I'm like, I know, but I couldn't. My faith wouldn't let me not let God do it. It had to be from
Right.
God. I couldn't not do
Yes.
that. And the doctor even said, well, I can tell you this baby is a miracle because you
Yes.
should not have been able to conceive her on your own. And I was like, it is a miracle. And then, they're like, and she's perfect. Even though you didn't have prenatal care for the first 17 weeks,
Yeah.
God put her there perfectly and she is perfect. And I've always felt like that she is my little miracle and
Right.
that, I couldn't have had it happen better than it happened. God knew. And I really do think he was waiting for me to give up control of it, for me to realize
Right.
I did not have any control over the situation, that no matter
Right.
what I did, it wasn't going to happen, you know,
Yeah.
and he had
Well,
to
that's just like,
make it
just,
happen.
it reminds me of Sarah, right? That wanted to have a baby. She wanted to have a baby. And, oh, what was that woman's? Naomi. I think, no, not Naomi. Um, anyway, the other lady that was also a wife, but she, had all these children, and she kept
Mhm.
praying, Lord, why are you not giving me a child? How old was she when she actually got pregnant?
And the
She was
chances of that
old,
even happening, right? At her
right?
age, you know. Um,
Yes, at her age,
and and
and
and this was my plan was I'll be married by I'm 25. I'll have two
yeah,
kids by I'm 30. Okay. I got married when I was 23. So I felt
yeah,
like I'm 2 years ahead of the game. Maybe I'll be able to have three kids by the time I'm 30.
yeah.
I had my daughter when I was 3 months shy of being 35.
Oh wow,
We had her in September, and in November, we had our 11th wedding anniversary.
right.
So 10 years
Yeah,
of
10
trying
years.
to get her. And I was like, I had even told myself, if you don't have a baby by 35, because back then you have to realize 35 was like high risk pregnancy. It's not
Right.
like it is now where people are 45 and conceiving
Yes.
naturally and having perfectly great pregnancies. It was
Yeah.
definitely high risk pregnancy. And I was like, if I can't have one by 35, then it's over. I'm not going to have one. And I
Right.
mean, I cut it really close within 3 months of being 35. So,
Right.
you know, but
Yeah, but again, it's all in God's perfect
yeah,
plan. You
exactly.
know.
And this is another bad thing to even have to admit, but for somebody who wanted to be a mother so bad and
Yes.
had 10 years to prepare, I was the worst first time mother ever because I did not learn about anything. And this is, of course, before we had the internet to look things
Right.
up. So
Right.
I didn't even read the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. I had done no research at all. So
Uh.
everything to me was like a big surprise. It's like,
Right.
oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that would happen. I didn't know, and so many things. that
Yeah.
I experienced through that pregnancy and that delivery. It's
Yeah.
almost like God said, okay, you waited. Now you get to experience all of it, every bit of it, even
Right.
though you don't want to experience some of these things, but you're gonna have to go through these things. And looking back at it, I'm so glad that I had the experience that I had. But at the time, it was almost like be careful what you pray for, because there are things you have to do in order to
Yes.
get that baby. You
Yes,
can't just put it in
absolutely.
there. It has to come out, you know?
Right.
And it's like, oh, I can't. And I was like on bed rest the end of my pregnancy. And I was like, Lord, could you just let it while I'm asleep? Like, could I go to sleep and wake up and the baby's laying here beside me? Couldn't that be the way you do it? It's like, do I have to go through all of that?
Right.
And unfortunately, with me, they induced me. The baby was breech. They tried to turn her.
Oh,
I still had to have an emergency C-section. So
right.
I went through labor, but I
Yeah.
also went through a C-section. And it was like, yes, I was blessed with a baby, and I know all about having a baby. God didn't let me miss anything.
Right.
Like, you will have, but you know what was really a blessing is that when my daughter, I always thought my daughter was going to have problems. So
Yeah.
I kept making sure, they tested her levels and all this, because I was like,
Right.
hereditary, we got to catch it quick, and we got to treat her, because I want her to be able to have kids if she wants kids.
Right.
And so she did have trouble getting pregnant, but she didn't have the problem I had. So anyway, when it came time for her to have her daughter, I talked to her doctor ahead of time, and was like, even though this was 24 years ago, they let
Right.
me suffer. I was in labor for 3 days trying to have my baby, and then I
Yeah.
had a C-section anyway. So I want to know from you, like, what's your limit? Like, how long are you going to let my daughter suffer before you take and do what needs
Right.
to be done to get that baby? And he was like, look, you don't have to worry about me, because my goal is to have a healthy mama and a healthy baby. And if
Right.
either one of them are in distress of any kind, that's when we do whatever we have to do to get that outcome. And I was like,
Yes.
okay, perfect. I'm confident in you, and I know, it's going to be great. Then, and this was kind of after the COVID thing, but it was still kind of going on. And
Right.
so the hospital where she was going to give birth had an outbreak of COVID. And her
Oh,
doctor was the head of that department, and he decided he was not dealing with that with his babies and
right.
his mamas. And so the rule was you could have one person with you, but that person stayed in the room the entire stay. And if that
Right.
person left, they couldn't come back, and nobody else could come in. So now,
Oh my.
of course, I wanted to be there. My son-in-law, the daddy, he wanted to be there.
Right.
My husband and his wife, they wanted to be there. And so it was kind of
Yes.
like, look, we all have to step back and say, the daddy's got to go. We can only have one person, and it's got to be the daddy. So the daddy goes. Now, granted, neither one of these kids, and I will call them kids until I die. But
Right.
neither one
Right.
of them had ever had a baby before. My daughter had never had any kind of surgery. She'd never had stitches. She'd never had a broken bone. She'd never been hospitalized. And I don't believe my son-in-law had any of those things happen to him either. So they were very naive about the whole
Right.
hospital stay kind of thing, right? And so when we found out, I even said to the doctor, I said, I'm mad at the hospital for not letting us come. And he said, no, you're mad at me. It was my decision. And I said, oh, well, I don't want to be mad at you, but, and he was like, as much as you want to be there, I know you want that baby and your daughter to be healthy, and I have to protect them. And I was like, praise God that he is smarter than me, and he's not going to let my emotional need to be there,
Right. Right.
overweigh their safety. So
Yes.
anyhow, my daughter, they go, and this hospital's in another town. and the reception was horrible on the cell phones and stuff. And I really couldn't talk to them or didn't know what was going on. And it was horrible for me. And my husband's wife, Nana, stayed
Right.
on the phone with me. She is a labor and delivery nurse, been doing it for like 40 something years.
Uh,
And she was going to be there in the hospital too. I mean, for nothing more than support, but still, at least, she knew the routine of what would happen.
right.
So she stayed on the phone with me the entire time, and talked to me through, all my anxiety and all of that.
Right.
So eventually, my daughter had to have a C-section. And I had told her before that, I can't help you recover after a natural birth because I didn't have a natural birth. But if you have to have a C-section, I got you. I know exactly, what
Right.
to do for you. And, I was going to be there with them, after the baby came home and everything anyway. So I was like, you don't have to worry about that. So anyhow,
Right.
they finally get a phone call to me, and it's my daughter, and she's like, Mama, it's that time. The doctor's here, and he's making the decision. I'm going to have the C-section. And I was like, great. I know you don't want to. I know you're scared to death, but if it's the best thing for you and that baby, then I'm all for it.
Right.
And she was like, well, the doctor made sure that I called you because he wants to make sure you're okay with it. And I'm like, yes, you take care of them for me. I don't care,
Right.
just make sure that they're okay. Well, anyway, so they had to be there 3 days because of the C-section. So
Yes.
my son-in-law finally got me a picture. They finally let me know they were coping, everything was good. I go to pick them up at the hospital, and I had gotten the car seat ready, and I had neglected to show either one of them how you adjust the straps. And so they
Oh,
get the baby in the car seat, and they're trying, to get ready. I'm down at the entrance waiting for them to come down. They
right.
can't get the straps adjusted, and they won't let the baby leave the hospital unless she's secure in the car seat. And
Right.
so my daughter calls me in a complete panic, and I'm like, well, just let me come up there and do it. She's like, Mama, you can't come up here. Just
Yes.
tell me how to do it. And so I'm trying to remember exactly. And I'm like, and there's this silver thing. You press it and you pull on the strap. And I had put
Yeah.
this really nice, comfy car seat cover on it to where they
Right.
couldn't see the silver button to do it. They finally got it though. But when they got in the car, they were so exhausted. The baby had not slept at all the night before, and they wouldn't take her to
Oh,
the nursery. And so they were both up all night long trying to get the baby, quieted down into sleep.
right.
So they were exhausted. And my plan was that I was going to try to get them to take a nap and let me take care of the baby. But I was like, how am I going to convince them just to hand this baby over to me? Well, they get in the
Right.
car, and the first thing my son-in-law says is, Ma, are you taking us straight home? And I was like, I know she's got prescriptions, and yes, I'll take y'all home, and then I'll go get the prescriptions.
Right.
Well, that's when they proceed to tell me that they were up all night and they're exhausted. And, so by the
Right.
time I get back from the pharmacy with the prescriptions, they're like, okay, good, here's the baby. And they both went to sleep. And so I had that rest of that day,
Welcome to
that whole
grandmahood.
night, with the baby. So it was wonderful.
Yes.
But I was
Yeah.
like, Lord, goodness, make me suffer through all of that. But
Right.
my daughter
Uh,
appreciated having me
oh,
there, and I
yes.
cooked for them and cleaned for them. And I took the night shift with the baby and slept in the daytime while they were awake with the baby. So it worked out perfectly.
Right.
And I have a killer bond with my granddaughter because
That's
I was
right.
right there. Other than the first 3 days, I always am like, I was not there from day one. I was there from day three. Hello,
Right.
TJ. Welcome.
But you were still there in spirit. You were
Oh,
still
yes.
there.
Yes. Both me and Nana were both there on the phone.
Yes.
And I don't know what I would have done without Nana being able to talk me through it because I
Yeah.
was so anxious. And the fact that
Yeah.
you can't get a phone, that you can't just call and check on them, it's just makes it so
Right.
much worse. It's like you really don't know what's happening, and you just have to stay
Right.
there and just wait for it to happen. But
Yeah.
God was definitely there with them and with us,
Oh, yes.
and it's,
And
my
I know
granddaughter's
all
the
about
biggest
that echo because
blessing.
with my first one, I had the same thing happen to me. Where I was in labor for, I think it was almost 2 days, and they tried everything to get her out, from taking those gadgets that look like, I don't know, like you use for lifting things up with, remember those
Forces.
tongs or whatever they're
Yeah,
called.
yeah.
Then they tried a suction and like a turkey baster thing to
Yeah,
get her out. She
yes.
was not coming. She was not coming out. Finally, they said, "Oh, maybe we need to do a cesarean." By that time, I didn't even have energy to push anymore.
Yeah.
It's like I ain't pushing no more. I don't know how you're gonna get this kid out of me, but I am not pushing anymore. So
Because it takes
I
everything
totally
out of you.
understand.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
After, because you're trying and you're trying and nothing's happening, and the doctor's like almost yelling at you, push harder, and I'm like, I'm pushing as hard as I can, right?
Like I
And
said.
and you're getting your anxiety just from, sometimes doctors says, and your anxiety is going up, and you're like, oh no, I gotta keep calm, I gotta have this birth, and stuff, but yeah, but so I
Well,
totally understand. And there was a nurses strike going on.
oh my goodness.
So during
Mm.
the time that I had her, so I had not only had to have cesarean, but the nurses strike. So there was hardly any nurses around. So here I am with this little one, first time mom, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with her.
Well,
I don't know what to do with her.
we knew from when we found out that the
Yeah,
baby was breech. She was breech every single time I had an ultrasound. She was breech.
right,
I was admitted into the hospital to have a C-section, and
right.
they said before we go to do the surgery, they're going to take an X-ray. They took the X-ray, and she was head down. They said, "Oh, cancel the C-section. We're going to induce
Right.
you."
Because I think
So,
that maybe the baby will turn.
well, she turned again before they actually, after,
Oh,
while
okay.
they were inducing me, she turned again, and they tried
Right.
to turn her. And then they got her
Yes.
back head down, started inducing me again. And then the second day of the inducing, she did
Yeah.
like a somersault during the night.
Yeah.
And I was like calling the nurse saying, bring the ultrasound machine in here and look, because she just did a flip. And they're like, no, she is down in the
Right.
birthing
How can
house.
they flip once
There's
they're
no
down?
way.
Yes.
Whatever you felt was not that.
Right.
Then they come, and it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and my mom and my husband had just left to go get some sleep because no baby was coming that night.
Right.
They come and do the ultrasound, and doggone if she hadn't, now she was sideways. And they were like, we're calling the doctor. You're probably going into surgery. So I call my
Right.
husband up, and I'm like, y'all need to hurry up and come back. I'm going to surgery. But by the time they got a hold of the doctor was like, well, we'll do it in the morning. That next morning, she
Yeah.
had done turned again. So then
Yeah.
they induced me for the third day. And it
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
until the morning of the fourth day that they finally decided, okay, we,
Right.
we got to get her out of there. But it was such
Yeah.
a mess. It's like,
Yeah.
just do some, and you think that they're professionals and they do this all the time. And so you put your
Right.
faith in them.
Right.
And then, the doctor was a very strong Catholic. And
Mm-hmm.
she said to my husband, I'm going, and this was on a Friday. I went in there like on a Tuesday morning. I had her Saturday afternoon.
Right.
But on Friday afternoon, she told my husband, I'm going to the lake house for the weekend, and they can call me, and I can be back here in 30 minutes, so no problem. And she said,
Right.
I'm really just waiting on a sign from God to see how we're gonna, handle this. My husband
Right.
says to her, what does the sign need to say? Because I'm gonna make you a sign because this baby needs to get here. We're tired. We're tired of all this nonsense. And she was
Right.
like, well, in the morning, we'll have our answer. And sure enough, by morning, they were like, yeah, we got to go ahead and
Yeah.
do it or
Yeah.
whatever. And I was so exhausted. And I
Yeah.
had
Yes. Yeah.
I had the
Exhaustion
diabetes
sets in.
the whole time. And
Oh.
they're giving me insulin, but they're not feeding me. And so at one
Right.
point, my blood sugar dropped so low that her
Yeah.
blood sugar dropped so low
Yes.
that they come rushing in there with this big old glass of orange juice. And they're like, you got to drink this. The baby's blood sugar is dropped. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, but what about my blood sugar? Y'all are giving me, and I kept telling them, if I'm not eating, I don't need the insulin. You don't give me
Right.
insulin because at that time I was on the insulin that you took at meal time with
Right.
your meal. So I shouldn't have had that if I wasn't getting something.
Right.
And it was crazy. And they were just like
Yeah.
kept pumping me full of the insulin. And then once the baby's sugar dropped, then they were like, oh, you need to drink this orange juice. And I'm like, I don't drink orange juice because it is going to raise my sugar, but it's going to raise it too fast. It's going to be like, shoo. So
Right.
it was just craziness the whole time. And my poor husband, he ended up sleeping in the room, in the chair. He put the newspaper over his head to try to sleep because he was like, I'm not leaving again just to get home to have you call me to come back. So
Right.
I'm
Right.
here, and I had a room on the maternity floor, and then I was in labor and delivery. So they let my mom go and sleep in my bed in that room,
Oh.
so she had a place to sleep, but they didn't offer my poor husband anywhere to sleep. So he sleeps in the kind of recliner chair that, is hard as a rock in the
Yes.
hospital
Yes.
room,
Yeah.
puts the newspaper on his head, and I'm like, the whole time I kept looking over there and the newspaper's going up with his snoring, back down, up with his.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so hilariously funny for me.
Yes. Yeah.
But he was so excited. He wanted to look good for his daughter being born, and he put a tie on. He never wore a
Oh
tie.
my
He
goodness.
was a t-shirt and jeans kind of guy. And he brought a dress shirt and a tie. And
Oh, that's
I
funny.
wake up and they're like, okay, we got to get you ready. And there's all this panic and I'm upset. And I look over and here he stands there, this dress shirt and this tie. I'm like, who the heck are you? It's like, where is my husband? I need my husband. And he's like, I want to look good for the baby. And I'm like, the baby won't be able to see you. It's like, this is crazy, but okay. It was crazy. One of the
Oh,
things I
that's too
did not
funny.
know about infants were that their fingernails grow into their skin, and that
Yes.
when they're newborns, you can't just clip their nails. You have to like have little scissors and just gently trim that off.
Trim it up.
And so I didn't know that. So after my daughter was born and everything, she had the longest fingernails. And I was so afraid she was going to scratch herself. And I had the
Yeah.
little mittens, but she wouldn't keep them on. She kept wiggling
Right.
around and they were coming off. So I was like, we've got to trim her fingernails. So there was a drugstore across the street from the hospital. So my husband sets out on the mission. He's going to get something to trim these babies' nails. He
Right.
goes to the drugstore. He buys this adult manicure set, a huge package of emery boards. He comes back and he's like, okay, I got everything we need, to do it. I take one look
Right.
at it. I'm like, honey, this will not work. This is a baby. You needed to find like baby scissors or,
Right,
baby scissors
right,
or, something. So he's all, deflated that he didn't do a good job. Well, here comes the nurse, and I'm like, I need to trim her fingernails. And she's like, oh, here. And she gives me the little set, to
right.
do it. My husband's like, so we don't need all of this? I'm like, no, take it back. We don't need it. But his heart was
Good
in the
try,
right
honey.
place. He tried so hard to be a good daddy, do the right thing, but it was so hilarious.
Right.
It was so hilarious.
Yep. Yeah, their little fingernails are so soft. But I used to just, I mean, this might sound gross, but I just used to bite my
Bite him.
kids.
That's what my
Yeah,
daughter did too. She
yeah,
said she read it in a book somewhere that you just bite them because
yeah,
you can't bite close
right.
enough to make them bleed or
Yeah, because I
anything.
was too afraid to try the clippers. So I was
Hmm.
like, no, I'm just going to chew them off.
Yep. I was like, yep, that's what I should have done too. But
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. It's like, I'm not using those clippers on my kid. I was blessed though. My kids, some people they have their now my grandson, I mean he was a colic baby, but my kids, I mean they almost slept right through the night on or maybe a week after.
uh
I
huh,
mean I always had to go check on them because they were sleeping. And they say you gotta feed your kid every 2 hours.
yeah.
And I'm like, well, why isn't my child waking up to eat? There's something wrong with my child. But no, they were just,
And it goes against the grain to wake up a sleeping baby just to try to get them.
right?
It's
Just to
like,
try to get because it's almost impossible when they're sleeping to
yeah,
get them to eat, you know. And just as being a new mom, right? And I was breastfeeding, and I was like, this is not working, and she's not eating, and I'm crying, and like, why doesn't she want to eat, and why does she just want to sleep? There's something wrong with my kid, but no, it was just her nature was, you know, she was a sleepy baby.
yeah.
And all my kids, so once I had her, all my kids followed suit. They were all the same. Very content, they'd put them to bed at night and they'd wake up 6 hours later.
Yeah, my daughter was a good sleeper too, and my granddaughter was a good sleeper. But
Yeah,
I think I didn't stay awake when my daughter was a baby. I did have to sleep, um,
right,
and I always had that fear of like, did she wake up and cry and I didn't hear her? You know, and
right.
I don't think I slept real soundly, but like I didn't sleep at all with my granddaughter. I was like, nope, I'm not taking the chance of missing her cry because then I felt like if I'm supposed to be doing the night shift with her and I fall asleep and she's waking up crying and they wake up because she's
They
crying,
wake up.
they're
Yeah,
going to be like, some good night nurse you are. You ain't even hearing the baby, and we're hearing her from the other room. So I was like, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not waiting. And I would just sit there and I would wait and I would be like, well, it's been 3 hours.
yeah,
All right, I'm
yeah.
giving you 15 more minutes and then I'm going to wake you up. So
Right.
then
Yeah,
eventually, I would pick her up or something and then she'd start to wake up a little bit and I'd be like, oh, good. Okay, it's time for you to eat.
right. Yeah. But yeah, those babies that just cry and cry. It's that's got to be hard. But I never had to deal with that, and even my grandkid. Well, Patrick was a little bit more when he was a bit older. My dad would walk him for hours in the hallway, and I'd be like, "It's 3 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing?" Walking him because that's the only way that he would stop crying. And his mom had to work, and so it was like, okay, my turn to take over on the weekends. I'd come down on the weekend. My turn to take over and walk this child. So can't we just take him for a ride? Aren't they supposed to settle down in a car? Because I never had to deal with that with my child with my kids and my granddaughter
Mhm.
either. She was a very good sleeper. So it was the first time I ever had to deal with a child that had the chronic cryness. And they say that you're supposed to just leave them and cry, but how can you? You know,
Well, and
I couldn't do that. I couldn't just leave a child just to cry.
well, I
Or they
was
say,
doing the thing where I would try to get her asleep, and then I would try to lay her down, and then she would wake up.
right,
And my husband was like, "You just feed her and change her, and then you lay her down,
and lay her
and
down. Yeah,
if she'll go to sleep." And I was like, "Yeah, no, I can't. I
yeah,
want her to be asleep before I put her down, but then I would wake her up every time."
right,
And he was working like the 2 to 12 shift, and so he would do the
right.
2 o'clock feeding. So I would try to have her asleep by 11, and then I would go to bed, and then he would get her at 2.
Yeah.
And one morning he comes home from work, and I'm in the rocking chair, and she's passed out, and I'm passed out, and he said, "Well, I guess that's one way. You're not going to wake her up if you don't get up. If you just let her sleep on you. I'm like, oh, just leave me alone. We're asleep. It's like, you're not here. You don't know what it's like.
Right,
And then when she got older and started cutting out feedings, of course, she cut out that 2 o'clock in the morning feeding. And she would
right.
wake up like at 4 o'clock. So he would just get in the bed and go to sleep, and she'd wake up, and I'd have to get up with her.
Yeah.
And it was like, why couldn't you have kept that 2 o'clock and cut, and made it till I got up at 6? Crazy, crazy, crazy.
Yeah, but they are such blessings,
Oh, they
Again,
are.
children
I
is just a
wouldn't change
blessing.
it for the world. I have
No,
such good memories of the whole thing.
yes, yeah,
And I wouldn't give it up for anything. But it was trying. Many times I was like, man, if I had only known. Because, other people make things look so easy.
right,
And so you
yeah,
don't realize all the stress and
yeah.
anxiety and, all the sleepless nights and, the first time they're sick.
Oh,
And,
yeah,
you just don't see all of that. You just see, oh, look, they have a cute little baby. They can dress it up. And
right.
it's like,
Put a little ribbon in her hair,
yeah.
put a little sweet on him, you know?
And then when you have yours and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I actually had gallbladder issues. And I had
Oh,
several gallbladder attacks before I was pregnant and then after I was
oh
pregnant, but
my
I didn't know that's what it
goodness.
was. And
Right.
so when the baby was 10 days old, I had to go back to the doctor, and I had they did my cesarean up and down instead of crossed.
Yeah, that's how mine was done too.
And
Yeah.
I had staples. And so
Yes.
I had to go at 10 days, and they were going to take like every other staple out.
Right.
And so I didn't have a babysitter. So, of course, I had the baby with me.
Yep.
And everybody's looking at the baby and they're like, the baby is so pink and you're kind of yellow. And I'm like, what? I'm fine. Maybe I'm yellow. So the doctor's like, well, I think we need to do a gallbladder ultrasound on you. You might be having a gallbladder issue. And I was like, well, would that just come up all of a sudden? She's like, well, have you ever had, and she starts describing these attacks, and I'm like, oh
Right.
no, yes, I get those a lot.
Yeah.
Like, you probably have some gallstones. Let's take a look. So they look, and my gallbladder was huge, and they were like, you've got a stone blocking the bile duct, and you're going to need to go in the hospital. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this baby? I got a 10-day-old baby. I mean,
Right.
what do I? And
Yeah.
so they were like, okay, we'll let you keep the baby in the room with you. But you have to have, I had to have like a nuclear medicine test. And they're like, you're not going to be able to nurse her for X
Right.
amount of hours. And I'm like, okay. So we made it through the 10-day thing.
Yeah.
And and then the doctor was like, you need to have gallbladder surgery. But since you just had a C-section, I want to wait if you can wait. Well, by the time she was 3 weeks old, I was like, I am hurting so bad. I need to
Right.
have the surgery done. So again, I couldn't breastfeed while I had the anesthetic. So my husband started giving her formula. So whenever I got done with the gallbladder surgery, she was so used to having the formula,
For
I
me,
could nurse
yes.
her for like 30 minutes and then
Yeah.
she drank the whole bottle. And I was
Yes.
like, as badly as I wanted to nurse her, it was like, I need to feed the baby. So I let her go to the
Yes.
formula. And, you know,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah,
Yeah. Just
I'm
in
not going to stress over
circumstances.
this. There's too much gone on, and it's just
Right.
too much of a headache and all. And when he was doing that night feeding, I would have to pump and leave the bottle for him,
Oh, yes. Yes.
and that was sometimes it was even hard to be able to pump in between trying to feed her
Right.
to get enough so that he could do that feeding. So
Yeah.
it was a
Oh,
struggle.
yes.
It was definitely a struggle, but it was very rewarding, especially
Yes.
as she grew up. It was like nothing. I was the most protective mama bear ever.
Yes.
I mean, I actually thought I could kill somebody with my bare hands if I had to. If it touched one hair on her head, I would be ready to get them.
Right?
You know?
The mother bear will come out.
Oh, definitely. And
Yes.
I'm that way with my granddaughter too. I'm like
Yeah.
very.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just
Protective.
in tune with her. I'm very sensitive to her, and
Right.
I don't like it when she's upset or unhappy or um,
Right.
anything like that. It just really bothers me. It's like, oh no. It's like, don't be
Right.
sad. Don't be sad. Come here, let Granny fix whatever your problem is and make you happy again. Be happy. Don't be sad. Don't
Yeah.
ever be
Don't be
sad.
sad. No.
But
Uh,
we're all going to be sad sometime in our lives. So
yes. Yeah. It's a good thing to learn,
it
actually.
is. And I've
Yeah.
noticed too that all the things that I tried to teach her while I was keeping her are paying
Right.
off now that she's at school and having to deal with
Right.
things. It's not
Yeah.
like she doesn't know how to calm herself back down or be okay with she doesn't get her own way and some of those kind of things that were very hard
Yes.
lessons to try to teach her, but yet I'm
Yes.
so thankful that we did because now it's not as hard for her to adjust. But
Right.
well, Star, I
Yeah.
have to go get her, so
Oh, righty. Well, thank
i
you
would
so much,
I would
Echo.
love to continue our conversation. I knew that when we started talking about motherhood, I was like, yep, that's what we need to
Yeah,
talk about. That's what
that's what we
Star
need to
needs
talk
to help
about.
me on. So I appreciate that so much. Hello,
Uh,
Joel. Welcome. And everybody that came and joined us, thank you so much.
yes.
I do have Star's channel pinned at the top of the chat, so make sure y'all go over there and check her out. She does have a Facebook group and she does have a
Yep.
Patreon, and her
And
Patreon is
this,
free.
yes, it's free and it's got, I love writing. I've always loved writing. And so I also do Bible studies and or devotions, I call them on my channel, that turn into Bible studies, I guess. They were supposed to start with small devotions, but now it's like almost 2 hours. And sometimes when I get into the word, I can't stop. But anyway, so I write
Well, but
songs with them,
that's what
and
you do.
God has blessed me with being able to do that. And I love music. I have always just loved music. Very very musical, and so I can bless others with the music that
Right.
He allows me to create. I always say it always comes from God because that's exactly where it comes from. But yeah,
Right.
so that I try to post every day. I'm trying to post every day a song a day on there for you to listen to with there's sometimes a small little devotional with it. But yeah, so
Yeah.
thank you,
Well,
Echo.
I joined as soon as I saw it in Sherry's community post. I was like,
Uh,
really? Oh, let me check this out. And so then I was like, yeah, okay, I'm here now, so I'm ready for
right, well,
whatever.
I thought I had to have a Patreon to connect um,
Tia.
with Tina. So I
Yeah,
thought, oh, I have to create my own first before I connect with her. Where I realized, oh no, I didn't have to do that. So I thought, well, that I created one, I might as well use it,
that's right.
and I'll use it
And
for the
it
glory of God. So
Yeah, and it's also you will reach other people too by just having your Patreon there. you know,
Oh, okay, yeah.
other,
I don't really know
I
anything
mean,
about.
they might stumble upon you and be like, oh, you know. So I mean, it's
Yes.
good. It's definitely good. I have a couple of the Facebook pages which I'm not good about posting on them either, but
Yeah.
I've been trying to work on my Khloe channel and my Granny channel, and I'm like, I'm going to start Facebook
Yes.
pages for them, and I'm going to try to be better at posting. So
Well, there's only so much time in a day. Echo.
exactly, exactly. And I am one that goes down rabbit holes, and I will be, you know, thinking I'm going to
Yes.
do this, this, and this, and something will catch my attention, and then it's
Right.
like all day has been wasted, and I haven't got, you know, but I have learned about Suno. I have to schedule myself
Yes.
a time limit in Suno because
Yes.
I am never satisfied. And I'm like, I'll just do a one more, I'll just make one more version. And then
Right.
that one I'm gonna love, you know. And then
Yeah.
sometimes I even am I'm downloading them and I'm still tweaking them. And I'm like, why are you downloading them? You are still messing with it. Let you know, leave it alone till
Right.
you get it. And then, so I've got to go in there though and clean up my Suno because I don't have hardly anything public. I have
Oh,
almost
yes, and you
all
can
this.
connect on Suno as well. So if anyone that has a Suno, you can
Yeah,
connect with others. So if they do publish a song, you can hear it on there, which is really neat. So we
yeah.
need to connect on there too, because I don't think we've connected on there,
I don't
Echo.
think we have either. And I
So
think I have the link somewhere in my, I don't know if it's in my
okay,
bio or in my descriptions, but anyway, I
okay,
do know
I'll
what
look
my
for
link
it.
is now. For a long time, I didn't know how to even share the link to let people know where, you know, where it was
Right,
at. But like I said, I don't have very much public on there.
right,
But that's a work in progress because
and
I would
then
love to be
on
able to do that and be able to
right,
connect
and
with people.
Sundays, I don't know if you want to be a part of it, but there's Suno Warriors every Sunday that Reverend Dream puts on. So he gives a bunch of Bible verses to read, and then from those Bible verses, you can create a song. And then on Sunday evenings, I think it's at what time is it? I think 5 o'clock my time. So that would be what 5, 6, 7 o'clock your time. Then all the songs get played. So all the
Yeah,
ones
now
that
I've gone over there and listened a few times, but I didn't
yeah,
realize that there was a certain verse that you were supposed to make the song from.
yeah. So
Yeah.
there's like 5 or 6 different verses, and then there's words. So the words, and then from that, then you can create a song.
Okay.
So I'll share that with you now. I'll share with what, and we're always looking for more people to join because
Yeah,
you
I
know
would love
we're
to
in a
do it.
praise and
I
worship
just
time.
I didn't understand how, you know, how people were
Right.
coming up with the stuff. And I know that Ashley does goes
Yes,
in it
Ashley
too.
is involved in that as
And
well.
who
Yes.
what is it? Serving My Redeemer.
Serving my Redeemer.
Yeah, and
Yes.
he came on
Yeah.
my Suno thing that last time.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah,
Yes.
so that's
That's
good.
right. He did. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
And I'm going to be doing that Suno again on the 20th. That's a
Okay.
Saturday at 8 p.m. That'll
At
be the
8
third
p.m.
episode of that. I enjoy that so much. Just getting to hear other
Yes.
people's take on it and
Right.
how it's helped them. And
Well,
I
just
really
all the
like that.
different sounds, you know, the different things that you can put in, whatever you like, you can have that song sound however you like.
And I didn't
And
realize that you couldn't just say, you know, like jazz or pop. I mean, I didn't
right,
know you could just say, I want it to sound like blah, blah, blah. And they'll figure out what that blah, blah, blah is supposed to be, you know?
right,
So that's
right,
what I've been playing with lately is like not really telling it what I want, but just saying,
right.
I want it to be uplifting or I want it to be, you know,
Yes,
whatever.
like a
And
praise
just
and
see
worship,
what,
or you want a soul, or you want,
yeah.
a prayer ballad, or whatever you want. You can just put it right in there, and it will come up with. Maybe you only want female. For me, I love the duets.
Oh,
I
I do
love the
too.
male and female, and the harmonies. So that's usually what I put in mine. But they're all different from country to,
I got to
mostly
learn how
country
to
and praise and worship. But
I got to learn how to save the singers when I find some that I like,
Oh,
the
that you like. There
Stoners
is
or
a price
whatever.
on there apparently now, and I haven't even looked at that yet, Echo. So I
But
can't even
because
help you
I'm
with that
always
yet.
like, oh, I should have figured that one out because I really like that one, and then I'll forget what song it was on, and I can't go back and fix it. You know, so
Right,
I'm like, you need to figure out how to do it so that when you come across it, you'll be like, oh yeah, let me save that. You know,
right.
so
Yeah,
I just
I
have to
haven't even
go in
figured
there.
that one out yet.
I just have to
It
go in
probably
there
would
and
help.
play around more, with it. I
Yes.
learn something new in there every time I go in there. So, it's like a little treat for me. It's like, oh,
Right,
I've got time today. We're going in Suno.
right. You get all
I
excited.
know I can't do it all the time because I would get nothing done
Right.
if I just went in
Because
there
that
whenever I
again
wanted to.
can be a very addictive.
Well, and sometimes I'll be like, oh, I really want a song to go with this video. And then I'll go in there, and even though I'm supposed to be making one song for that particular
Right.
video, then I'll say, oh, but it would be nice if I had this, or maybe I should work on this, and that before you know it, I've got so many things going, and it's like,
Now you got a
okay,
bunch of projects going. Yeah,
stop.
I'm the same way.
What did you come in
I
here to
started
do?
one, then go to another, then go to another. Like, oh no, I was working on this first.
Yeah. It was like, oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. No, no, no. Don't listen to me, Suno. That's not what I want. I need this right here. Even though I just erased all that and typed something totally different. Don't listen to that. It's like,
Right?
and I didn't know too that you could copy, like when you write the lyrics, if
Hmm.
you could copy them and save them. So I was like losing them every
Yes.
time. And then if I wanted to work on it, I had to like start fresh again. I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh, that was like
yeah.
such
You can
a good
save
thing to
it.
figure out that I can save it because
Yeah.
I was doing that way too many times. And then I'd be like,
Right.
why didn't you at least write down the parts that you liked instead of just getting rid of everything,
Right.
starting over. But
Yeah.
it is a learning
It is,
process.
and it is a lot of fun. And I encourage to anyone to try it out and write yourself a song and
Yes,
just listen to
definitely.
it because it's an amazing program. You know. And if you need help, Suno is there to help you too with some words. A lot of
Yeah.
times I'll get stuck on, I'm like, oh no, I'm stuck, and I'm trying to get these words to rhyme, and they're not rhyming, and then I'll just put in that little paragraph, and she says, okay, I need help,
Yep. Yep. It's
and it
wonderful.
will give you the words to rhyme.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm not good at rhyming either. I think if I ever do write poetry, it won't be poetry that rhymes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love
I
when
know,
you
and I'm
say
always searching for one word. One word. Why can't I find a rhyme for this one word? What's gonna sound really good with that, right? But
yeah,
but
and I
yeah, it
find
is an
too that
awesome
I
program.
use a lot of similar words and
Yes.
it gives you
Yeah.
similar rhyme. It's like I don't want
Yeah.
every song to have that same, you know, but
Right. The same thing. Can you change
you just say
that?
something different here. Don't say that. And then I
Oh,
think too, I will listen to it and I'll be like, okay, yeah, I like that. And then I'll say
yes.
one more, I'll do one more, and then it'll be, oh no, I like this one better. No, do I really like this one better, or was that first one?
Right.
Then it's like you're fighting with yourself, like which one should I keep? So that's why I have
Yeah.
so much in mind because it's like,
Yes.
well, don't get rid of it. You might come back to it. You know.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a mess
But
in there. They're probably saying, "Lady, you're not supposed to keep everything."
oh, I keep everything too. I think I don't even know how many songs I have in there, and I really need to go in and clean mine up as well.
Yeah, I
But
definitely do. And I don't think I
that's
have
that's not
all of
on the
them.
top of my priority list.
No, me neither. And I'm sure that I have so many in there that I've downloaded the video to be
Yes.
able to download it into Canva to do something with that, and I haven't. So
Right.
it's like I need to go in there and
Yeah.
compare and see which ones I still need to download the videos because it's a mess.
Right.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
So
I got to run, y'all.
yes.
So thank you so much.
Well,
Thank you,
thank you.
everybody. And we will see you soon.
Have a blessed day,
Bye.
everyone.